It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes. Yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
From North Carolina, we've got NBA writer for The Athletic, NBA, and beat writer for the Charlotte Hornets joining Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. It's Rod Boone on the show this week. Rod, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Renee.
No problem. I was about to break out in what is it, Petey Pablo, North Carolina.
You out of control, man.
Hey, raise up. All right, so let's get right into it. You've been covering the Hornets, and they're a team that's kind of middle, as we have been talking about the NBA predictions for the season, nobody really has high expectations for them, just to be completely blunt. But you recently were talking about their player development and how they are looking to get on the right track in building this team. We've got Rozier in the mix. What are your thoughts on what you've been seeing from the Hornets behind the scenes that we don't all get to see?
Well, that's the main thing for this team this year you're talking about. Is it's not about wins and losses. For most teams, it's about wins and losses. You want to come out there and make the playoffs and show your fans you can actually win a championship or something like that. But the Hornets right now are going in the opposite direction. They lost their best player, Kemba Walker, to the Celtics in free agency. Jeremy Lamb, second leading scorer, went to the Raptors in free agency also. So these guys this year have a very young team, and for all about trying to go out there and develop these younger players. For them, it's a small market. They don't play their players a lot of money per se. So for them to be able to win consistently, they have to be able to develop their players that are here while they're here. So this year, James Borrego, came from the Spurs and the Greg Popovich. And one thing they did there in San Antonio was develop players. So this year for the Hornets, that's their main thing, is to come out here, get these players to be better in every aspect, develop them, get their skills on point, so in the next year or two, when they start adding players to the roster, they'll be good to go.
That makes sense. Yeah, they're one of a few young teams, and the Pelicans are another one that we'll talk about later, that are kind of in that rebuild mode and really figuring things out. But with the preseason schedule, and of course, we take preseason with a grain of salt. It is only the season before the season. This is not going to make or break what happens, a month from now as we get farther into the season. But you have had the chance to see the Hornets play the Heat, the Sixers, the Celtics. Specifically with the Sixers and Celtics as two of the predicted top teams in the East. If all goes well, they should be. Let's talk about what you've seen from those two teams, as we do have some changes. You talk about Kemba Walker going to the Celtics, with the Sixers rebuilding, making some changes, bringing in Al Horford. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from those two potential top teams in the East?
Well, you're right. Both of those teams are definitely formidable. And you look at, the Raptors and the Bucks, those teams I'm talking about, Boston and Philadelphia, will be right there with those guys. Because start with Boston, they brought in Kemba Walker from Charlotte, of course. And you have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown. You still have Gordon Hayward. You have those guys be able to kind of form a nucleus there. And you figure with a good coach there in Brad Stevens, they can maybe get to the next level. But Philadelphia is coming, I'm telling you, man, because watching the guys in Winston-Salem a couple of nights ago on Friday night against the Hornets, they didn't Joel Embiid out there, man, and you can see that they're a vastly improved team. They had to, get to the postseason last year and, getting to that next level, but they just passed Toronto in that incredible Game 7 with Kawhi, this incredible bucket there. So for Philadelphia, I think that they're really motivated to come out here this year, so that they are one of the better teams, not the best team in the East. So with Joel Embiid motivated this year, with Ben Simmons having maybe a jump shot for the first time in his career, You know, with the guys who can come in like Mike Scott, who's off the bench, they're, to me, like the team to beat right now in the East. Toronto is obviously the champs, but they lost Kawhi and players of that nature. And then Milwaukee is right, too. They probably will be number 1 and 2, probably neck and neck all year. But I think Philadelphia, in terms of their firepower, you know, having Tobias Harris as well out there, stretch the floor. When you have these players, as long as they buy into their role and they all are about winning,
right, they
should be okay. So I think, to me, they're the favorites right now in the East.
I could tend to agree with you. I think, especially right now, everyone really is talking about the Sixers and now really is believing in the Sixers, all because we saw Ben Simmons make a three-pointer. I feel like
I know, just one three-pointer, right?
Oh my, one three-pointer, and everyone's like, "Yep, we're winning the championship. It's official." Or we're winning at least the Eastern Conference. I won't say championship, but I know for I have a lot of relatives, my dad being one of them, that are like diehard Sixers fans. They are now believing the hype because of the simple fact that, as you mentioned, Joel Embiid, when he's not on the court, they still look good. And more importantly, we have been seeing Ben Simmons be more of a threat from the perimeter, working on his jump shot. And, of course, once he made that three-pointer against the Nets, the world literally went crazy. So it seems as though right now the hype is all about them. But you cannot overlook the fact that you talk about the Celtics. You know, Bradley Stevens is such a great coach, and I think they've only upgraded with bringing in Kemba Walker. I know moving Kyrie, everyone's, question is how will they look without Kyrie now with Kemba, but I think he's a better fit for them with Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward and Carson Edwards stepping into the mix, Jaylen Brown, those types of players. I think it's a better all-around team in terms of their movement and things like that.
I agree. I think they are a better all-around team because with Kyrie, he's a great player, but with Kemba, he's a different kind of player, different dynamic. So we'll see if it fits in terms of championship type level of play. But I agree with you. I think there'll be a better team over Kemba there.
Yeah, and you've had the chance to see Kemba Walker's growth in the league. I mean, he's always been someone that, because he was with the Hornets, maybe he was a little under the radar, but everybody knows how great he is. You've seen him drop 40 points in a game. You've seen his stats. You've seen the performances that he's had, the All-Star game performances that he's had. And you and I know that he's a player that, can be a team first. He's a team first guy. It doesn't have to all revolve around him. He can get the other guys involved. So we talk about the East. You talk about the use of the Hornets and how they're rebuilding. There are some other teams, and I mentioned them before. The New Orleans Pelicans are a team that comes to mind as we've been seeing, what the Zion era is going to look like. But they've got Brandon Ingram, if he can stay healthy, Lonzo Ball. They've got their leader, Drew Holiday, who they claim they're building the team around. This is another young team that's really on the rise and that might not be a contender for winning their conference this year or even making a far run in the playoffs. Who knows? Anything's possible. What are your initial takeaways? Again, it's only preseason, but your initial takeaways from what we've been seeing from the Pelicans in their first few preseason wins.
Well, the Pelicans are, you're right, one of those teams that is up and just because of Zion and Drew Holiday and young guys like that. You'd like to see them kind of get to where they're at because last year with Anthony Davis situation not working out for them, they were pretty much in purgatory and couldn't go anywhere. But then you win the lottery and you get Zion up in there and you're right back to where you want to be. So I think having another Philly guy coming there, J.J. Redick, also his veteran presence, built to the three-point ball, said it immediately he doesn't want his streak of playoff seasons to end this year. So he wants to make sure he gets to the playoffs. That's very important for him. So I think they'll be one of those teams that you want to look at as well this year on the rise. But the only thing, they play in the deep West. And it's like, what team made the playoffs last year in the West is going to drop out this year? You know what I mean? So the West is just so stacked that for them to sneak in, they'll probably be the number 8 spot or 7 at best. And it's like, what team is going to falter at the bottom? So while it's definitely on the rise, I'm not sure just right now, as things stand, they have enough experience and enough talent to be able to beat out other probably 8 teams that could be better than them in the Western Conference.
I think that's exactly it. The West is so stacked right now. I mean, you look across the board, it is hard to pick who's even going to be in the top 8. And I talked about it before. I think it's a matter of, all right, how does the season shake out? Unfortunately, injuries are going to be a big part of it. If someone loses one of their – I mean, a lot of these teams have 2 all-stars and a really strong group of role players. How healthy are they going to be come the end of the season? How are these guys going to gel together? There's so many questions we still don't know, but it's wide open. The Warriors dynasty has come to an end, at least so I think, with them losing Kevin Durant, even though he's injured and can't play the season anyways. Him going to the Nets with Klay Thompson being injured. We've seen them. Of course, I was so happy to see the Lakers beat them in the preseason game. My boy LeBron, of course. Got to give him a shout-out. But it really is wide open in the West, and there are so many top teams. I mean, what are your predictions for the Western Conference for this season? I know who I've got in the top 8, at least one team, and I've got the top 8. Curious to know yours.
Well, that's a great question. I was thinking about that earlier. And the friendly pick right now probably is the Lakers and LeBron for a number of reasons. You figure LeBron's really motivated. I mean, like the playoffs last year, the Lakers, he felt like they didn't have a good year. He has Anthony Davis. Now he can come in there and be a sidekick with and kind of like defer some of the score, responsibility to him per se. So I think you look at them, you have an up player, Kyle Kuzma, veteran point guard, Rondo, a player stretch to 4 actually out there, and Danny Green. I mean, they have a lot of elements. You look at the Lakers compared to where they were last year. So again, we're talking about the Pelicans making the playoffs. The Lakers didn't make it last year, so they're sneak in this year for sure, right? So if they're in, who's out? So that's the problem with the West is so many good teams. But the Lakers, to me, are right now probably the cream of the crop because of LeBron and Anthony Davis. Then you got to throw out, Houston Rockets have been in the mix too. But the question for Houston is can Russell Westbrook and James Harden, ex-teammate Oklahoma City years ago when they were younger players, can they coexist in the same court, the game's on the line, and they need a couple of buckets? Who's taking a shot? James Harden? Is it Russell Westbrook? If James Harden drops to the basket, kicks the Russell Westbrook for 3, is that shot's going to be made? So that, to me, is a big question mark, and I'm just not sure they'll be able to get over that hump, despite them adding a Russell to the mix. So you got to throw in, Utah Jazz. They're a team many people are probably talking about because they're in Utah, but they had a pretty good year last year too. The stars, Donovan Mitchell. They have a good center in Rudy Gobert. They have a really good team as well, and Jeff Green, those kind of guys to the mix. Bojan Bogdanovic. So they're going to be right there too. They're going to be the top 3 or 4 team in the West in my mind as well. You can't count Golden State out just because of Steph Curry and who he is, but you're right. They won't be the same team the last few years because of injuries and because of not having a fan there as well. So the West is, like you said, still kind of wide open. I just think that right now, if you look at the teams that probably, again, can't forget about the way Dame Lillard played last year in the playoffs. We have Denver there too. I mean, come on, I keep naming teams all day here.
The Clippers.
The West is so stacked. Yeah, Clippers, exactly. Thank you, Clippers. So the West is just so stacked that it's really hard to predict who's going to come out on top. But right now, the Lakers are the favorites because they have Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I agree. I love that you led with the Lakers because I've been telling people, I know everyone's been saying the Clippers, in their opinion, are the favorite because Kawhi and Paul George move into a team that already was a playoff team last year without them. And we know the way that they can change the game, but I still, if LeBron's on the court, I still can't put anything past him. And you bring in, as you talk about, Anthony Davis, Kuzma, those types of pieces around him. I do think they are, without a doubt, a playoff team, if not a Western Conference favorite, and at lowest, top 2 at the West. But, again, we still don't know exactly what the Russell Westbrook, James Harden dynamic duo is going to look like. We haven't seen them play together in years. We don't know how they're gonna gel. And if they're, most importantly, focused on winning the championship, it could be very dangerous if they do figure it out. But I think that's the excitement of the season that I know I'm looking forward to is the fact that you have so many teams that are competitive, that are in the top, that are, fighting for that top 8 spot. It's not as simple as being able to, name the top 2 that we think are going to win. Or like in past, we were able to say, oh, the Warriors are probably going to win again. We finally have a season where we don't know who's going to win. We don't know who's going to make the playoffs. Even in the East, we don't really know who's going to make the playoffs. It's not as easy as it looks on paper and as it's been in the past. So I'm excited.
You're right.
Sounds like you're excited too.
I am. I mean, if you ask me now you're right. Who's going to be the finals? I mean, usually every year it's, okay, the Warriors and the Cavs, or the Warriors and the Celtics, or whoever it may be. This, who's going to be? Probably right now, people probably say Lakers and Sixers. It's probably like the trendy, would be my guess, or Clippers and Sixers, something like that. Clippers and Milwaukee. But, we just don't know. But we'll know soon because it starts next week for real.
Yes. It is finally time. Well, Rod, thank you so much for joining us. Where can our listeners follow you on social media to keep up with your articles and your NBA coverage?
Oh, well, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Rod, D like dog, and then B like boy, OONE. My work is on The Athletic. You can go to theathletic.com/Carolina. And my stuff is there. Like I said, the story I posted just yesterday about the player development of this organization and this franchise is very important. And I was able to get some behind-exclusive access that I was very appreciative of. So you can check my work out in those 2 places, and we'll keep moving.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. I enjoyed having you here on Beyond the Headline this week to get into the NBA preseason as we are all anxiously waiting the start of the season, which is right around the corner.
Thanks for having me. Anytime, Renee.